We don't have a healthcare, we have a disease care program. We think of healing as fixing something that has gone wrong, repairing. But shamanic medicine is really about creating the conditions for health, and disease doesn't manifest. The prophecies were that there would be a new human born in the planet during this time, called Homo luminous. During extinction events, evolution happens within generations, and it developed extraordinary superpowers. It was the women that allowed us to survive. Biology is the most spiritual thing in the world. The soul resides in the heart, not in the brain. In the back of the heart, there's a little teardrop shape that it's what leaves when you die. It goes up through the chakras and ideally leaves out of the top of your head so you can step into infinity. The best neuroprotective ceremony is the fire ceremony. That's what we're going to do next.
Oh, I'm excited about that. Welcome to the Heart Coherence Collaborative. We're so excited to have Alberto Villoldo with us today. And we're going to talk about so many things, from shamanism to healing your brain, your body. And Kyle's going to start off.
Yeah, and we're also going to be doing a ceremony today, as this is the part of our opening ceremony for our Heart Coherence Challenge. So welcome.
Thank you. Great to be with you, and I'm looking forward to our ceremony towards the end of the program also, because it's humanity's most ancient ceremony, the very first ceremony, which was done around the fire. So yeah, but let's save that for dessert.
Beautiful. Yeah. All right, well, let's warm up here. So you've done a lot of traveling with a lot of shamans, and I'm curious, if there was one message you think they could deliver to humanity, specifically the people of the West today, what do you think that message would be?
I'm going to demonstrate that message.
Okay.
I like that.
So we got to quiet the noise. There's so much noise. The whales, if you've gone in the water with the whales, they have ships going through all the time. They're disturbing them. The noise of humanity is so great. But even worse is the noise that's inside our heads. If we can quiet the noise, that's the nature of shamanic prayer. When shamans pray, they pray with the silence of the all. My background originally was in a brain laboratory, and there's nothing really as noisy as a brain laboratory, especially mine, because it was in the biology department at San Francisco State University, and I had 200 brains and bottles of formaldehyde around me. And you think that people stop talking when they died. They don't. So the quiet and the silence is really an important part, so we can get in touch with the wisdom of the heart and not only the data in the brain.
How do we use our heart? In shamanism, what is it about the heart that is a portal?
In the West, we've been looking for the soul for a long time. And, the Chinese looked for it in the liver, and the Egyptians believed that the brain was totally useless after you died, especially, but in many cases, even before. And they would mummify every organ in the body, but they would stick a couple of straws in through the nose and they would drain the brain out, because after you die, within 8 hours, the brain turns into the consistency of a milkshake. So they would drain the brain out because they figured you wouldn't need it in the afterlife. So the heart, the soul, in so many of the Himalayan and Andean shamanic traditions, the soul resides in the heart. Not in the brain. This is where right in the back of the heart, there's a little teardrop shape that it's what leaves when you die. It goes up through the chakras and ideally leaves out of the top of your head so you can step into infinity and not into a bardo or one of the purgatories where you're still, hanging out with your ex-husband.
I would love to know, what is the most miraculous healing you've ever encountered in all your shamanic work?
Okay, so let me kind of dig a little bit into that question.
Yeah.
As we think of healing as fixing something that has gone wrong, repairing. And that's Western. In the West, we don't have a health practice. Medicine is actually a disease practice. It's a disease-based. So we don't have a healthcare, we have a disease care program. But shamanic medicine is really about creating health. You create the conditions for health, and disease doesn't manifest. Or simply goes away. So I'll tell you a story. I'm a medical anthropologist, and I've traveled many parts of the world. But when I was a young man in graduate school, I got a call from the foundation that was funding my research in the Amazon, and they said, we need a junior anthropologist in Haiti to study voodoo, to complete a voodoo study. And I said, I don't know anything about voodoo. My expertise is in the Amazon. And they said, yes, we know. We're looking at your grant request right now. I said, okay, when do you need me in Haiti?
I'll do it.
A week later, I was in Haiti, and I got to do the junior work because the old man was the senior anthropologist. But I got to meet with the voodoo priests. And voodoo is one of the great healing arts of Africa. But the French were such horrible slave drivers in Haiti that the average lifespan of the slave was 2 years. In America, it was almost 30. In Brazil, it was almost 40 years. That's why Brazil has so many of these wonderful colors or shades of people. So the voodoo was used to correct imbalances and the violence and the sadism of the colonizers. And I asked the old man, the voodoo priest, how do you hurt somebody? How do you kill somebody? He said, we don't hurt people. We just restore balance. He said, well, when somebody is out of balance, how do you restore balance? By killing them. It is so easy. Basically, when they're asleep, we call on their luminous body, their energy body, and it shows up in front of us, and we track the energy body. We look at it, and if we find a dark spot in it, which is kind of stale information, like a virus, but in the energy field, we activate it. And then that virus, or that stale chi that the Chinese call, is going to try to work its way out through the biological body, through one of the weakest organs. And that's how disease happens. And then that person's immune system will collapse within 2 weeks, and they'll die of one of many conditions. And I go, wow, that's pretty nasty. What about, how do you heal someone? And he said the same thing. So we just call their energy body while they're asleep generally, but it can be also done while you're awake. And when they're in front of us, we'll track and see if there's stale chi somewhere, and we'll pull it out through one of the chakras so it doesn't have to work its way out through the biological body. And I, wow, how cool. So in shamanic healing, we work with the energy field around the body, and we remove these karmic imprints, the stale chi that in medicine we call the genetic predispositions you may have for cancer, for example. Well, it's not in your genes, it's actually in your energy field. And you can extract it directly so it doesn't have to try to heal its way through the body. In fact, disease is seen as the body's best attempt to try to create health. So if you can bring it out through the field, then you don't have to deal with it physically once it's manifested. But even once it's manifested, you can do a lot for it. And I had a call, and I'm trying to answer your question. It's a very long answer, but
I love
Great
it.
answer.
Yeah.
I had a call from one of our graduates. What I do today is to train modern shamans, and this woman works in the Pentagon. She's in the Navy, high in the Navy. And she calls me and said, they found a tumor in my brain the size of a golf ball. And I said, look, I need you to see a neurologist friend of mine that I wrote a book with called Power Up Your Brain, Dr. David Perlmutter. I need you to see David. And you may know Dr. David Perlmutter from his books of Grain Brain, etc. And David saw her and said, yeah, you've got a mass in your brain. I'll send you to a neurosurgeon, see if they can do something about it. They couldn't. And so we began working together. We had 3 sessions together. And she's a trained modern shaman that works in the Pentagon with the Navy.
Whoa.
After the 3rd session, she went back to get films. Her neurologist wanted to see new films, and they look at the films and there's nothing there. And the radiologist says, these things don't just go away. And she says, yes, they do.
Just did.
And he says, no, they don't. Let's get another set of films. She says, yes, they do. And we'll get another set of films. And they do go away. So next set of films, totally clear. Now, 2% of all medical healings are what we call spontaneous remissions. 2%, but nobody wants to look at that 2%. They want to look at pharma interventions, surgical interventions. So that was one of the most stunning healings after something had gone wrong. But ideally, the shaman practices prevention, clearing the field. The energy field is an information field. If you can debug it, then you don't have to try to work it out through your physical body. The same with your emotions. If you can heal your emotions, you don't have to try to heal it through your spouse. You don't have to marry it.
Nice.
That's a funny way to say it.
Our mission here at the Heart Coherence Collaborative is to get people in touch with the healing power of the heart.
And we really need your help. Right now, only 1% of viewers subscribe. We are aiming to take that number to 6%.
The reason why we want to do that is the more people that subscribe, the more people in the world can learn the magical practice of heart coherence.
So please help us out. If you've ever listened, if you love this message, please just take a moment to subscribe.
Thank you so much. We love you.
We love you. There's so much that I want to talk about, and a lot of it will be, what we're doing a lot of things wrong in the West and in America, and I'm excited to talk about all of that. But I would love to start at birth, because I think we're all more aware that we can take on energy from our mother, and that we could even from day one be born into fight or flight, or born absorbing all that emotions. Can you talk about what you know about what happens to us in utero and in the birth experience, and what we might be even just coming into life with?
Yeah. There's the Hopi story. The Hopi have a legend that we have an energy twin, and that before we're born, that one of the twins looks out of the uterus out into the world to see if it's safe, if it's a safe family, if it's a safe environment. And if it's safe, it says, come on, let's be born. If it's not safe, then part of one of the twins will hold back, and you are born incomplete. You're born with soul loss. And that's, of course, just a legend, a metaphor. But what happens is that many of us were born into families that were not safe. Like, my family was not safe. My mother was too young. Actually, the moment of my conception, my mother did not have much experience in bed. And my dad had had a little bit too much whiskey. So the moment of my conception was this combination of whiskey and terror. Bam! And talk about epigenetics. Yeah. This is where my 23andMe was selected, in that moment of intense terror and stress. And that I was born with my fight or flight switched on. And fight or flight is what produces the deadly stress chemicals in the brain, the cortisol and the adrenaline, that then create psychosomatic disease and accelerate aging. So this is, we're even from the moment of conception, we're being programmed to be in peace or to be at war. And it was only many years later when I was able to reset my fight or flight. And there are very few things that will reset your fight or flight, because it damages a region in the brain known as the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is where learning happens. And when you're in fight or flight, you're an expert your entire life. And there's nothing more boring than having dinner with somebody that knows everything. Or thinks that they know everything, because they're in fight or flight. They cannot afford to not know, to be in the mystery. It's terrifying to them. So they have to hang on to the data, to information. And of course, let everybody know how knowledgeable they are. So this is from the moment of conception, and then throughout pregnancy. And then if your mother had a bunch of mercury fillings, what the body does when you have something growing in the body, whether it's a child or a tumor, like Russian scientists, they're dissecting cancerous tumors and they find that they're full of heavy metals. It becomes a way for the body to eliminate, to detox. The same with a child. We're exposed to chemicals today that our grandparents weren't. And with this child growing, the body will begin to dump lead, mercury, heavy metals, PCPs, PCBs, forever chemicals, microplastics, so that the toxic burden of the kids that are being born today is extraordinary. And then the emotional burden of having parents that both have to work, and who's going to look after the baby, and how are we going to afford? And you live in an apartment building where, I visit friends that live in a tower, and there are more than 100 different internets. They're all locked. I can't connect to them, but they're going right through their living room and their bedroom. So the EMF pollution is extraordinary also. And the body wasn't designed to be able to handle this effectively. And then you have the organs that have the most mitochondria in them, which are the heart and the brain. They have the most fuel in consumption. They're the most energy intensive. The heart is such a powerful organ. It's rich in mitochondria, the brain. And that's where the toxin gravitates to, because they have the most turnover of fuel. And your heart's contaminated, your brain is contaminated, and then then we get the killers associated with aging, which is heart disease and dementia and cancers. It's a strange, intense time we're living in.
Yeah. Talking about the intense time that we're living in, I know you have spent some time in the Andes, and so I would love to hear just a little bit about the Earth Keepers of the Andes and what they said about this time that we're living in right now.
I did. I have spent a lot of time in the Andes with a group of shamans that were the prophecy keepers that had no contact with the West. I was the first anthropologist, American anthropologist, to work with them. They fled at the time of the conquest to very high altitudes, and I met them by accident. They said it was by coincidence. I thought it was a fortuitous accident. And then I started visiting them, and I noticed that even though they had had no contact with the West, they had been exposed to the illnesses of the West, because they had had contact with other Indians who had been in touch with Westerners. So I started taking, there were babies with big distended bellies and people with skin infections, and I started taking some basic Western medical supplies. And I remember one woman says to her husband, who was the distinguished shaman, he said, "Look at this," I was a young man, "look at this boy. This boy's medicine is more powerful than yours. I have no headache anymore." And I said, "Yeah, no, that's aspirin. Aspirin is really good." So I was welcomed kind of as a Western healer, because I brought, when you have babies with parasites, we have really good medicine for that. So I had access to the shamans. They received me, they welcomed me. And over the 40 plus years we've been in touch with them, we have helped them build schools and deal with the Western medical issues that they have, that their medicine cannot treat because they hadn't had any exposure to the viruses that we carry within us. So I was very fortunate, And as a result, I got to meet the elders that have passed away now, who were the reincarnation of ancient prophecy keepers. Because all of the Native American peoples believed that we come back, that we return. So there were a group of 12 prophecy keepers that reincarnated to deliver the prophecy of the great upheaval called the Pachacuti, the turning over of the world that would be occurring during our lifetime. And that coincided with what we call an extinction event. The planet is going through an extinction event, only the 5th one since the dawn of life on the earth. And the prophecies were that there would be a new human born in the planet during this time. The new human would appear, called Homo luminous, not Homo sapiens, not knowing man, but luminous humans. And this was really intriguing to me because what I knew that from biology that evolution happens in between generations, so that your kids are smarter and handsomer than you are, but it's too late for us. But during extinction events, evolution happens within generations. You and I, we can uncoil that DNA strand another twist and develop extraordinary superpowers, in effect, what we would consider supernatural abilities that are dawning, including the ability to heal ourselves, including the ability to train the body, the immune system, without needing to get sick, which is how you normally train immunity, but through information transfer through the energy field, to communicate mentally. The more you are in a spiritual path, and that's a grounded spiritual path, the more that you find that you're connecting and communing with people energetically, and that words become less and less important. Mm. So this is but they spoke about a quantum leap in our humanity and being at a real crossroads in which we could also become extinct.
Wow.
So I think that that's pretty evident for us today.
I have so many goosebumps on my body right now.
Knew it was going to be a goosebump fest this one.
Yeah.
In your books, what I love in Grow Your Brain and Grow Your Body is, and what I love about your work is that it really merges the spiritual with the biological. So I would love to start, and we're so excited to hear this detailed. Where do we start? You talked about healing your nervous system, and maybe you can say, do you start with food, possible supplements, things you're taking? Where should we start? And is it the biological?
Okay, you want to start with the biological?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first, thank you for pointing out that there's no difference between the spiritual and the biological. Biology is the most spiritual thing in the world.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's begin with the food. Our DNA evolved about 3 million years ago. We have a hunter-gatherer genome. We don't have an agricultural genome. So what happened 10,000 years ago when we discovered agriculture is that we stopped eating the 50,000 plants that were available to us and only started eating 3 that are not even green. And that's rice, corn, and wheat. And 10,000 years ago, you have the rise of agriculture, you have the rise of religion and of warfare. So we got to get back to our Paleolithic diet, which is not meat-based necessarily. And what happens is that these 3 elements, agriculture, in our case, wheat, in Asia, it was rice, Native Americans, the corn. And it goes right into the religion, so that even in the Lord's Prayer, the Lord's Prayer, it says, and give us this day our daily fats and proteins. So we get our daily bread. This is what the pharaohs fed the pyramid builders, was bread, while they ate the good fats and proteins. And we're lucky that we have supplements available to us, but there are 2 elements here with the diet. One is that we're killing ourselves with excess protein. we're eating way too much protein. And let me dive into protein for a moment. Protein regulates mTor. And mTor is the aging clock. It's the clock that shows the pace of aging, of how rapidly or how slowly you're aging. A lot of protein turns on up mTor, which is the mammalian target of rapamycin, which is accelerates your clock, your inner clock. So you age much more rapidly. So we're killing ourselves with excess protein that we're taking in. And I know that sounds contradictory because we hear everybody saying, hey, you need protein, you got to have more protein. You do. You need 120 grams of protein a day. But it's where it comes from that's important. So this is going to take a moment.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Every cell in the body has a recycling bin. And you have a mitochondria that dies or an organelle in the cell. It gets recycled because we grow a new body all the time. And so those organelles or mitochondria or components of that organ get put in the recycling bin. But that recycling only happens when you're burning fat for fuel, autophagy, right? Which you're very familiar with. So if you're burning sugar for fuel, recycling doesn't happen. So we're sugar addicted, so we're not recycling these proteins that are already differentiated, that are already liver tissue and muscle tissue and heart tissue. They don't, Leah, turning broccoli into you is a big project, or turning a shrimp into, it's got to go through a lot of steps. But if you have these proteins that are already in the liver in every cell that are differentiated, the amino acid combination is perfect for liver. It's right there. But you cannot use those until you do autophagy, until you do a recycling, which means you've got to be burning fat for fuel, which means you got to be burning your own fat, not external fats. So the problem, we're not able to burn our internal fat. We have which are stored calories, basically, because in its wisdom, the body is taking toxins and sequestering them, putting them away in the long-lived molecules, which are fat. So if you begin burning your own body fat, you begin releasing all these stored toxins that we stored for 30 years. And unless we have a way to eliminate them, the body won't let you burn your own fat. You can burn, the fat, the exogenous fat, from olive oil to avocados to whatever you're taking for fat, but not your own. But once you begin burning your own, you need to be able to detox the toxins that are being released, or you will retox. That's called a Herxheimer reaction. So you want to avoid that. We do not have access to the recycling bin. If we could have access to the recycling bin, you would have 120 grams of protein for recycling already. You would only need an additional 10 grams perhaps. But if you're not using your recycling bin, then you need 100, you need to get them from your food. We're such efficient engines. Ideally, you want to be recycling your own fat, the calories you store. We would eat a lot of sugars in the summer, at the end of summer, and then insulin, the role of insulin is to turn sugar into fat. And not only to get sugar into your cells, to store those calories for the long winter. But today the long winter never comes. And if you go into an operating room and you see somebody cut open, you see that there's this thick layer of yellow fat, and that's rancid. So if we can get the body to go into recycling mode, then we have access to all of these stored proteins inside the recycling bin in every cell. And the cells know how to recycle them. And then you need to supplement a little bit with exogenous proteins. Because remember, we were not really hunter-gatherers, we were scavenger-gatherers. We would run across roadkill occasionally and bring it home because we were very bad hunters. It was the women that allowed us to survive. They were the gatherers. There you go. Anyway, that's a long story, but this is the importance of detoxifying the system, and not only the filters like the liver and the kidneys, but cellular detox. And to get cellular detox happening, you need to switch on the recycling enzymes. And it's a pathway known as the NRF2 detox pathway. Have you heard of that one?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, NRF2, absolutely. So the things that switch on NRF2 are like broccoli sprouts, sulforaphane. Incredible. Switches on these detox pathways. You detox cellularly, and then the body says, okay, now our fat is clean. Now we can burn our own endogenous fat, and now we can recycle proteins, and we're happy.
I love that. I grew broccoli sprouts for a long time and then I got off it, but I'm gonna start growing them again. It's in my kitchen, my little grower.
Yeah, do it, because it'll get your massive detox, and then you begin to silence the genes that create disease and switch on the genes that create health. And this is my new book, and Grow a New Brain, because even though you grow a new body every 7 years, you grow a new brain every 22 days.
Wow. Yeah, could you speak a little bit more about your new book, just while we're on that subject?
Sure. It just came out, and people say to me, well, you're a shaman. What do you know about brain science? Well, I directed a brain lab at San Francisco State for a number of years. Small brain lab. We were looking at creating health, psychosomatic health. And but where I learned about the brain was in the Amazon, because in the Americas, there was no writing. The indigenous people had no writing. In Tibet, they had writing. Fantastic. In the Americas, no writing. So all of the wisdom of the tribe was kept in the brains of the elders. So they had to protect the brains of the elders, the sages, because if you forgot how to make fire, it would not be cool at all. It would be or how to make a fish hook, or where during the droughts, where the animals go. So in the Amazon is where I learned how to protect the brain, the plants, and the practices to protect the brain, so that you could protect the wisdom of the village, because you get dementia, you forgot what you had for lunch yesterday, and you forgot how to make a fire, and you forgot your kids' names. And then I brought the science together with the shamanic practice. One of the great practices for protecting the brain is to unburden yourself of your history, of all the stuff that's happened to you. All the crap that's ever happened to you, you put it in the fire, and that's what we're going to do next. The best neuroprotective ceremony is the fire ceremony.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm excited about that. I still have a couple of questions that have to do with all of this, because I love your information and I want to make sure that it's shared. And I feel like we have a little bit of an understanding of what's happening in the body. And we talked about broccoli sprouts. But is there generally a prescription for what you think is healthiest for most people? What's been healthiest for you to eat and to include because there's so many supplements. I mean, you could take 5 million things now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So what could really help? That's just a few things and a general guideline for how should we be eating that we can really grow our body and our brain.
Yeah, I can send you the Shaman's Guide to Longevity, which is a little booklet that you can make available for free as online to your audience.
Yeah.
And in terms of what to eat local, eat fresh, eat seasonal, undereat, don't overeat, and be sure that we used to feast and fast historically, because there would be no food for 2 or 3 days. We gotta occasionally give the body a pause
Mhm.
And in terms of eating, it's eat local, eat fresh, it's seasonal, a lot of greens. Remember the greens, there was a time we thought that food was worth calories, and now we know food is information. And so the greens are the epigenetic switches. The animal products are basically the protein, but the greens are the ones that epigenetically will silence the genes for heart disease, for breast cancer, for dementia. They're the epigenetic modifiers. So be sure you get fresh local greens, and ideally in a juice in the morning.
Nice.
Because that you make at home, they have antioxidant properties, but the antioxidant science is old science and it's not very good science to begin with. I mean, we do have to, they're good for you, but the real effect is not antioxidant. The real effect is the epigenetic modifiers, the genetic switches. And you're not going to get those from drive-through.
Yeah.
Give me a half dozen epigenetic modifiers on the side, please, with my
Yeah, yeah.
And then
So,
to close with, we mentioned broccoli sprouts. Is there anything else that is really powerful? Especially, it seems like mitochondria is really the place where you want to be empowering. Is there anything else that will help?
totally. Thank you for asking that. Really important. So I think that the other important thing that we can do is senescent cells. So eliminating the senescent cells. Senescent cells are cells that are neither alive nor dead. They're called zombie cells.
Hmm.
They're not living, they're not dead. Are you familiar with them? Can I
I
talk a
have
little bit?
heard of zombie cells, yes, in a product that somebody was trying to sell me about getting rid of them. So I don't know if it was a valid product, but that's where I first heard of it.
Well, this is a cancer protection system.
Hmm.
So when cells in the body divide, like in your skin cells divide every 6-7 days, you get new skin cells. That's why you go to the spa to get that skin rub, to get the old dead cells out. Your GI tract is every 3 days, your lung tissue every 3 days. Every cell in your body's changed every 7 years. So which means that they're copied, they're mother cells and daughter cells. So skin cells will create a new cell, a daughter cell, and then the old one will die off. And mitochondria is what tell it to die. See, mitochondria produce energy, but they're also in charge of the death clock. Tell cells when they need to die. Now, whoever controls energy and controls death runs the show, right?
Yeah.
That's it. The rest is just feeding and pooping and that's mitochondria. So when a cell divides, it has to copy all of its DNA perfectly. If there's miscopying, if the copying is not done correctly, biology will turn off the daughter cell and make it unable to reproduce anymore. It'll make it senescent, because if it continues to reproduce, we call that metastases. So it'll neuter that cell. And that's neutered cell becomes a senescent, an aged cell. And the problem with it is that it puts out these signaling molecules. It's like when you have a bad strawberry in a basket, it contaminates the ones around it. That'll happen to adjoining cells. And this is a body's innate cancer prevention program. This is the anti-cancer squad. Bam. Neuter that cell. Don't let it reproduce, because we'll get cancer throughout the body. So the anti-cancer mechanism is fantastic, but what makes one cell unable to copy correctly is the noise in the system. If there's a lot of noise in the system, the signal cannot get through clearly. And the noise is created by toxins. Toxins in our food, in our air, in our water, that creates a lot of interruption. So we're getting this excess production of these senescent cells that were designed to prevent cancer that are now causing cancer, because there's just too many of them. So in the Mayo Clinic, Dr. James Kirkland discovered how to eliminate these senescent cells. And he's a gerontologist who got tired of prescribing wheelchairs and said, hey, maybe we can reset mitochondria. Because if the mitochondria is not working properly, you have cells that don't know they need to die, that want to live forever, and that's cancer. So the senescent protocol will revert cells back to normal cells if they're revertible, and the ones that are not will get mitochondria to flip the kill switch. So they go. So you have new cells coming. Did you follow me so far?
Yeah, totally.
It's pretty complex, the whole chemistry of it. And so the protocol is to eliminate these senescent cells.
Mm-hmm.
And there are two products, and this is Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic is rich. They don't need to ask pharma for permission to do research, right? They have the money to do their own science that's not going to result in a pill that they can sell. That's the cool thing about Mayo Clinic. They work with two products, with quercetin and then an anti-cancer drug. But it turns out that the most effective senolytics products to eliminate zombie cells, they eliminate them by turning on the mitochondria death switch again. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Hey, we'll reboot your death switch so that you can let the cell know they need to die, so a new one can be born.
Wow.
So the most practical products that do that are quercetin and fisetin. I'll put them in the
I've never heard of
Yeah.
quercetin. I've heard of quercetin, but not the other one.
We'll have to get on that.
Yeah.
and fisetin you can order from Amazon.
Okay.
Wow.
They are the most bioavailable, and it's a 4-day protocol. Basically, you do it for 4 days, but you got to do it for 4 days for the next year because you've been accumulating these senescent cells since you were born.
Wow.
And this is getting rid of these zombie cells is one of the most important protocols that you can do it at home. This is the formula: fisetin, quercetin, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening, and it's in my shaman's longevity book. I'll send, and it's in my,
Awesome.
and it's really at the core of the Grow a New Brain book, because this is what makes your brain, what breaks your brain. You get a broken brain when these zombie cells build up inside your brain, and you can eliminate them, and you find that you have, the brain fog clears. But it doesn't just do it in the brain, it does it throughout the whole body. Your kidney function improves, your liver improves, because you don't have this burden of the cells that are not living nor dying, but are contaminating the cells around it. This is absolutely critical, absolutely critical. And people haven't heard that much about it. I mean, it's in my books and in a half dozen other books, because there's no big pharma promoting it.
That's why.
I love
It's
it.
always why.
Such powerful information.
Yeah, you
Oh,
can.
thank you.
You cannot patent strawberries. Fisetin is made from strawberries.
Oh,
Beautiful.
Quercetin from onion skins and blueberries.
Oh, nice. We love those. Yeah,
And we're gonna be on
that's my
that.
diet.
That's
Blueberries
honestly-
and strawberries. That's all I eat.
model the next phase of our life after you have a cookbook, and
Yeah.
we're on this train.
Yeah, you got to get on it because there's so much noise. And by noise, I mean toxins, environmental toxins. This is what creates the noise in the cell. And so that they cannot communicate correctly. And there's so much miscopied DNA. The minute DNA miscopies, it's terrible because it'll begin to produce things you don't want in your body. Call them tumors.
We don't want that. So this has been very valuable.
But the other part is you need to begin to get your higher brain engaged in producing your own innate psychedelics, which is a really critical part of the equation. And if you're good with time, I'd like to just describe this, and then we'll do our ceremony.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have a neurotransmitter called serotonin,
Yes.
and it's produced in the gut by your gut flora. And if your gut flora is broken because of antibiotics, then you don't have enough serotonin in your brain. Serotonin repairs the hippocampus so you can have a new experience of life. Then the pineal gland tweaks serotonin to turn it into melatonin so you can sleep. And then if there's enough serotonin in your system, then you get to sleep well. But for most of us, since our guts are broken, we don't get enough serotonin. If you have enough serotonin and you have enough melatonin, then the pineal says, let's put a couple of methyl bonds, let's add a couple of methyl groups to it, methylated, and which the body does everywhere. Serotonin is a tryptamine. And you add a couple of methyl bonds to tryptamine, you end up with dimethyltryptamine.
Hey.
Which sounds like what?
DMT.
It's ayahuasca. It manufactures it. And you need the brain, the higher brain needs the DMT in order to switch on. And then you have an experience of oneness, and then you can create psychosomatic health. And once that brain is switched on, you know that two things happen. You know that you're not your story of the drama that runs in your family. You know you're not your genetics. And you know that things never happened to you, that things happened for you. Even the most terrible things that happened to me, they happened for you. The universe is offering you a lesson. Never want to learn that way again. And then the fire ceremony becomes the way of unbinding the drama and the toxic energy, emotional energy around the stories that we have. So let's do it. And it's humanity's most ancient ceremony, because we sat around the fire for 1,000,000 years and we told stories around the fire, made love around the fire, delivered babies, helped the dying. It's in our DNA almost, the fire ceremony. And what you do is you get a small stick. I like these little hibachi sticks, and a candle. And and you want to put into the fire whatever story you feel is happening in your life right now that's disempowering. And sometimes it's a diagnosis, or sometimes it's something that, Leah did to you and she should put that in the fire. Or sometimes it's a parental story or a feeling of betrayal. Whatever it is that's disempowering you, you blow it into the stick. And the stick is called the death arrow. And you put the death arrow, the stick, in the fire, so that the fire can release the energy that we have bound around that story. And then you tap into your heart center so you can find forgiveness and gratitude, even for those terrible things, for the lessons that you learned, not for what happened, but for the lessons. And then you take sorry, I don't want to set myself on fire here. You pass your hand through the fire, and you're taking the energy back. You're letting go of the story. And you're taking the energy and you're bringing it to your heart center. Reclaiming that energy that you had invested in that big story about what happened to you, or what happened to your family, or what didn't happen. And this is humanity's first and most ancient ceremony. And it's a great way to heal that trauma, because trauma is only a story that we wrap around what we think happened to us. You can only do that from the higher brain. The lower brain is stuck in the story.
So everybody watching, we would love for you all to do this fire ceremony in your own time, and let us know, comment below how it went for you.
That was so good.
Yeah, thank you, Alberto. This was such an amazing time. And everyone watching, we hope you'll go get Alberto's book, We're reading it now. And yeah, this was special for us. So thank you for being here with us.
So much, and I'll send you a copy of my Shamanic Secrets of Longevity that you can send out to your people if they want to. Say it's a short little pamphlet that's all digital. So blessings.
Blessings.
Thank you
so
so much for sending love to everybody.
Bye, everybody.